Aw man, when was the last time I talked about a pre-6th generation game? I'm pretty sure it was my review of the first Ape Escape back in 2014. That seems like so long ago now, but not nearly as long as when I did the original Resident Evil in 2012. And what did I say in that review?
Now this isn't necessarily going to be a marathon of Resident Evil, but don't be surprised if I talk about the sequels a little after this review.
It's now 6 years later. I really don't know why I've been putting off doing Resident Evil for so long, but we're here now, that's all that matters. And what better return than by looking at one of the most well-loved entries in the series, even to this day, and to some it's the most well-loved entry, so much so that a complete remake is just on the horizon for 2019.
I was surprised to see that Hideki Kamiya from Platinum Games was actually the director for Resident Evil 2. Like, I know that he used to be part of Capcom, but I didn't think he was actually in charge of the sequel to a highly successful survival horror game. This would be the only one he'd work on though, just before he started directing the original Devil May Cry, and it would get a release on pretty much everything. The PlayStation, Nintendo 64, Dreamcast, PCs, GameCube, even the Gamecom had one, which is amusing. You want a Resident Evil game using black and white 2D sprites and take controls? Look no further. But whichever port you get, for Kamiya's one and only series entry, there's still quite a lot to like about Resident Evil 2. Though for the love of God, do not take it seriously, because things can get utterly ridiculous and the game fully acknowledges it, starting with the plot. Taking place only a couple of months after the first game, shit gets real pretty quickly as the zombie outbreak has already spread to the whole of Raccoon City, and we're introduced to two new characters that'll become staples to the series. Leon Kennedy, a rookie cop out on his first day, and Claire Redfield, who's searching for her missing brother Chris Redfield from the first game. The two briefly cross paths with each other but end up separated after a huge accident, so they need to travel across the city and enter the Raccoon City police station, where they discover that not only have the zombies killed most of the cops, but Chris is also sent to Europe to track down Umbrella, the established villains behind the virus in the first game. Leon and Claire do meet up again after some exploring, but they need to split up again to find any survivors. Claire comes across a little girl called Sherry Birkin who's being chased by a monster in the station, and Leon encounters Ada Wong, a woman claiming to be looking for her boyfriend that happens to be an Umbrella researcher. Oh yeah, fair warning, I am going to be talking about the full story because that's what I do in these reviews, so if for some reason you haven't played this after 20 years or are waiting until the remake comes out, here's the time code to skip ahead, but don't expect me to do these in the future. Anyway, sometime after Leon and Ada interrogate this prisoner Ben, we find him on the floor dying after being struck and impregnated by the same monster that's pursuing Sherry, as we see the embryo coming out of him and tearing his body to shreds. If you've seen Alien, then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But before Ben kicks the bucket, he leaves a letter to Leon explaining that the chief of police, Brian Irons, was bribed by Umbrella to seal evidence of the viral outbreak and development of the new G virus that can mutate a human into an ultimate bioweapon. And eventually Claire runs into Chief Irons pointing a gun at her, and it all turns out to be true, but he gets killed by the monster as well shortly after his monologue. As Leon and Claire make their way out of the police station and into the sewers, Claire and Ada come into contact with another woman who reveals herself as Annette Birkin, the mother of Sherry and the wife of William Birkin, the Umbrella scientist that gave birth to the G virus. Apparently as some way to protect his life's work from Umbrella's special agents, William injected the virus into his body, which turned him into the monster that's been killing everyone and going after Sherry. This is where we also learn that the pendant Sherry's been wearing contains a sample of the G virus, and depending on which route you take in the game, she gets implanted with an embryo like what happened with Ben, while Ada is mortally wounded by the mutated William. So this leaves everyone heading into the underground laboratory where Leon finds Annette again as she informs him that Ada is actually a spy sent to steal the G virus for an unknown organization, and forming a relationship with her boyfriend was merely a ploy to gather information about Umbrella. I've been sort of skimming past this little detail, but during a character's B scenario, you see Umbrella dropping a large creature sent to grab the G virus, and he's constantly hot on your trails and invulnerable to bullets. But that's until he finds you in the laboratory, and either Claire saves Sherry by knocking him into a pit of molten metal, or Ada does the same thing with Leon at the cost of her own life. There's a different scenario where Annette causes Ada to fall off the railings in the center of the laboratory, so she seemingly dies no matter which route you choose, but if you play Resident Evil 4 and 6, you know Ada's alive and well. Things don't look good for Annette though, as she tries to escape with another G virus sample, but she gets shredded by William. However, before she dies, she gives Claire instructions on how to make a vaccine to stop the mutation happening in Sherry, which she probably does as a random self-destruction sequence occurs thanks to the creature from earlier being thrown into the liquid hot metal, and turns into a tyrant from the first game that you once again have to blow up by using a rocket launcher. After dispatching the tyrant, Leon and Claire then meet up at the emergency escape train and give Sherry the vaccine, but William's not quite done yet as he mutates into something I think my aunt cooked once, and he's taken down after a lot of firepower as the train also has a built-in self-destruct sequence for some unknown reason, but at least the explosion gets rid of William for good and our heroes make it out of the city alive, though they still have a job to do, taking down Umbrella and searching for Chris. Cue the awfully corny 90s rock song for that awfully corny cliffhanger. Look guys, the story in Resident Evil games are absolutely nothing to write home about. They're meant to be stupid, mindless fun, and I wouldn't have it any other way. In the case for Resident Evil 2, Capcom wanted to give it more of a Hollywood feel than the first game, and my god, they sure accomplished it. The stakes are a lot higher this time around, and there are a lot of ridiculous moments, but I think they should be taken lightly, and at no point does it go too far. What I can't excuse, though, are the characters acting like they've known each other for a long time when they've only just met a few hours ago, even leading to Ada confessing her love for Leon. How the hell did that happen? They didn't have a proper conversation that didn't involve zombies, and there wasn't any chemistry to be found, so where did those feelings come from? And Sherry's just as guilty, treating Claire like a mother figure because her real parents are too busy with their work. Girl, you just met her. These shifts in tone are hilariously awkward, though the game's presentation is definitely a step up from the first game. Everything's more detailed than it was before, including character models, the pre-rendered backgrounds on top of the zombies, and the guts and gore's a lot more bloody this time. Resident Evil 2 also replaces the first game's live-action cutscenes with CG ones, but honestly I think the live-action cutscenes have aged better than these ones. I know the CG allows for a more creative character design, and I'm sure these were cutting edge back in the day, but ugh, they look rough now. Sherry even looks like a possessed demon child in these cutscenes. What's up with that? As for the voice acting, well, I'm sure you remember how legendarily awful it was in the first game.
Stop it! Don't open that door!
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
You're right.
Chris, don't die!
I'm going with you. Chris is our old partner, you know.
The acting in the second game's not quite as bad, still not good, but a subtle improvement over the first game, so the more dramatic scenes aren't nearly as laughable. But the script can still be utterly hokey most of the time, though I do like this line from Claire.
You lose, big guy.
I don't know why, I just find that funny. Maybe it was the delivery or the sheer cheesiness of it all, but I like that Resident Evil 2 can still put a smile on your face even while they try to make you feel scared. Whether that was intentional or not, I'll leave that to you. But yes, this is a horror game after all, and there are actually some pretty clever jump scares thrown in. I like this one in the interrogation room where you have that mirror that the prisoners can't see through, and a new enemy called the Licker crashes in and starts attacking. My favorite one though was during this one door transition that acts like any other door at first, but then a couple of zombies emerge from the dark and the tense music starts playing. It completely catches you off guard, and I love that. How about the part with a giant crocodile that comes right the hell out of nowhere and you need to run away and get it to stick an explosive canister in its mouth like in Jaws? Smile, you son of a... Ah, satisfying. As you can see, you once again control both main characters, although you wouldn't know that in the digital version without realizing you could change the discs. And when you finish one character's perspective in the story, you can immediately move on to the others. Like the first game, the characters have different scenarios created specifically for them. However, unlike the first game, there are additional objectives depending on the order of the chosen characters, known as Route A and B. So for example, if you went with Claire first, then there's a section near the end where you have to create a vaccine to get rid of a mutated embryo inside Sherry. But if you decide to do Claire second, then you only need to worry about escaping the lab. In order to experience the full story and access the true final boss, you need to complete both Leon's and Claire's scenarios with slightly different endings depending on who did Route B, but they both pretty much conclude the same way. In terms of the core game mechanics, Resident Evil 2 plays almost exactly the same as its predecessor. You explore the area with fixed camera angles, pick up weapons, items, and ammo to put in your limited inventory, and use some of those items to solve puzzles much like a point-and-click adventure game. I was surprised to see how good my muscle memory was with the tank controls after several years. It took a little getting used to, but I still didn't have nearly as much trouble with these controls as I did with the old Tomb Raider games. And it's still gratifying fending against a large amount of zombies. And I mean large, there are way more zombies here than there were in the first game. Hell, as soon as you start, you're greeted to a whole city street of zombies and you barely have any ammo to defend yourself. And for the love of God, don't get too reckless in this game because Resident Evil 2 introduces the new danger status. When you're on the brink of death and can't take any more hits, the characters will keep limping until you restore their health again, and not only does it make the gameplay incredibly slow, it's also much harder to avoid zombies. You're basically guaranteed to have a bad time if you're in danger, so keep an eye on your health. The scarcity of ammunition is also a lot higher than last time, so the game kinda recommends that you only shoot when you need to. Now with Leon, you get plenty of ammo by the end of his campaign, no matter which order you choose him, but Claire's are like gold dust, so I had a slightly harder time with her. In fact, I didn't find Claire's campaign to be quite as exciting as Leon's. Looking for Sherry all the time got somewhat repetitive, and her weapon selection isn't nearly as good as Leon's. She's got got a crossbow which can hurt a little, but it drains ammo like nothing else, and her grenade launcher has 3 different types of ammo including flame and acid rounds, but visually it got a bit old after a while. Her revolver was pretty cool, but you don't get it until you finish both routes at least once. The only advantage I think Claire has going for her is attaining the Jill Valentine School of Lockpicking to save looking for small keys. Leon, on the other hand, while not a master of unlocking, carries a lighter with him to use on the flammable scenery, and on top of having a regular pistol just like Claire, he can also carry a shotgun and a magnum to blow a zombie's head clean off, as well as a one-use flamethrower to burn them to a crisp. And in addition to those, Leon can also pick up add-ons to some of the guns and make them more powerful, like in Resident Evil 4. Look, I have no problem with Claire as a character, she's perfectly well-rounded, but I have a lot more fun playing as Leon than I do as her. Canonically though, it's considered that you do Claire first and then Leon, which I can kinda see why. The Claire A, Leon B route has a bit more going for it than the Leon A, Claire B route, particularly with a couple of new story threads thrown in. You'll have to go through the same locations and solve the same puzzles as both characters regardless, with the only differences being ammo and puzzle items scattered in different spots, and a few new rooms added for Route B. This essentially means if you want to see every possible path in Resident Evil 2, you have to complete it 4 times. Now, one character's campaign will only take 3 to 5 hours, and it will gradually get shorter with each playthrough, but I wouldn't recommend doing 4 runs in a row with how weary it gets once you're at the 3rd playthrough. I was originally just going to do one Route A and B path and leave it at that. I unwillingly did the Leon A, Claire B route because I didn't know how to change characters at the time, and boy did that come back to bite me in the ass once I got to the final bosses with Claire. I had no ammo whatsoever because there was an ungodly amount of zombies, lickers, and these plant creatures that can poison you, and thankfully with the Tyrant I could just run away for a bit before Ada drops me a rocket launcher and I can blow him to smithereens. I struggled to maintain my healing items as well because the Tyrant's attack window was all over the place. Sometimes I could get away without any scratches, but then other times he'd somehow hit me when I was nowhere near him. So okay, after spending around an hour destroying the Tyrant and escaping on the train, I only had 1 rocket left, praying that it was enough to deal with the true final boss, and unfortunately, it wasn't. With no ammunition before this point and unable to go back and get more, this game was as dead as the zombies I've been killing. I had no choice but to enter a cheat code with infinite ammo where I finally got Claire's ending, and I had to play the game 2 more times making sure I had enough firepower for Leon where I completed the game properly. That last segment was a major pain in the ass, and you could say it was my fault for not conserving ammo, but I'm sorry, I was making sure not to die from the other shit trying to kill me. Now some of you would probably tell me, well, why not use the knife? That doesn't cost any ammo. Well, because that's freaking impossible on the final bosses. The damage it does is so pitiful, you'll just end up getting hurt too many times before you even get close to killing it. Where's the fun in that? But see, despite that part of the game, I did have an enjoyable time with Resident Evil 2. In fact, I'd say this was better than the first game. The police station isn't as breathtaking as something like the Spencer Mansion, but I think the claustrophobic hallways make for a more tense experience, and the second game's also got a faster pace to boot with plenty of extra zombies and creatures to avoid, and secrets all likely have yet to discover. I thought the additional costumes were pretty cool, apart from Leon's cap and tank top. I don't know what that was about. Huh, look at that, the biker gear makes me shoot my pistol sideways. This truly is a product of the 90s. If you also ever want to play more after doing both routes, then you've always got Extreme Battle Mode, where you're just killing a bunch of zombies and reaching the end. It's sort of a prototype of the Mercenaries mode we'll find in the sequels. So yes, if you find yourself owning a PS3, Vita, PSP, or hell, even any of the older consoles I mentioned earlier, Resident Evil 2 is certainly one to add to your collection, or you could just wait for the remake next year.
I have no clue when I'll be doing the other Resident Evils, but I'll try not to make it another 6 years before I do Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, the final game in the original trilogy. I've never actually finished that one before, so that'll be interesting. Well, I guess it's that time. The next review will be Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Now, I'm going to be away for a while soon, and it turns out this game is freaking long, so the video is going to take a little more time to make, and I'm also going to the Eurogaming Expo in Birmingham, UK on the 22nd of September if you want to come and say hello. I'll most likely be waiting in line to play Kingdom Hearts 3. I hope to see you all there, and I'll catch you all next time. Pretty sure it was my review of the first Ape Escape, and I'm also going to Birmingham, UK. I'll hope to see you all then, and I hope damn it.